Hey, Steve,
What?
what kind of bone will a dog not eat?
I don't know what.
A trombone.
Oh. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Engaged Family Gaming Podcast. This is episode 201. And my name is Steven Dutzman. No, I didn't forget my name. That was what we call a pause in radio.
It was really pregnant, though.
It was a very pregnant pause.
What does it do?
It is what it is. So, I am joined this week by Amanda Farough, the Princess of Power. How are you?
I'm alive. I wasn't alive last week. I've been
definitely
resurrected.
were not. We took a week off because you were
Dead.
at death's door.
Yeah, I was dead.
And you needed to be like nursed back to health. So thank you to the army of people in your home that did that. Speaking of the army of people in your home, we're also joined by Mike Futter. Mike, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am great. So as promised, the string of guests begins with the easiest one to get because literally he just sits there.
No, just stop. Just stop. With the easiest.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not here to judge. So it made it easy because all I had to do was text Amanda and be like, hey, could you like turn your head 90 degrees and just shout, can you be on the podcast? And she did. And he really couldn't say no. So, Mike, thank you for being guest numero uno.
My pleasure.
And I'm sure you'll be many other numbers as time goes on.
Because I'm easy?
Because you're physically right there. It just makes life easy. It's kind of like my wife will likely be a guest on the podcast more often than not. Because she's easy, but because she's right there. Well, right now she's wrapped in blankets.
Okay,
her furnace
listen.
is broken.
Accessible.
You know, if you tell gamers that something's accessible,
they just don't like it. But the good news is most of our audience is not what would be defined as a hardcore gamer.
it's good.
Our audience is people like me who like games but don't like that shenanigans. At least that's what I've learned from the analytics. Anyway,
We're all just a bunch of gaming dorky parents.
we're definitely dorky parents. So this week, in case anybody didn't know, we're talking about video games. Specifically, specifically, we are gonna talk about the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie and his redesign. We're gonna talk about Pokemon Sword and Shield, and we're gonna talk a little bit about subscription services for video games because they are at this point, I think the two of you can agree with me, an unavoidable part of the video game marketplace. Like, you have to at least know what they are because, if for nothing else, I think in some cases they're a very good value. So we're going to figure it out. So we're going to talk about that. You two are the business folks. Being Amanda, you literally run a website about business, and Mike has literally written the book, two of them, in fact, about business and games. I, however, am a 2-bit family game blogger, so I know nothing. That's why I have the experts coming.
No, you have more bits than that.
You have way more bits.
I'm like a 4 bits.
You're at least 8.
Anyway, at least
You are an NES, or if you prefer,
I am an NES of knowledge about video game business. So before we get into the topics, though, I want to talk about Extra Life because both of us, well, all three of us, did Extra Life marathons within the last couple of weeks. You guys did one on Mixer, and you gamed for 24-ish hours. The week before was it during the big marathon? Yes, right? It was like during the actual Extra Life game day.
And we went into daylight savings time, so it was 25-ish hours.
It was 25-ish hours. I watched several of them while I was on my family vacation. They were wondering why I had my phone out, and I was like, I'm watching video games with my friends, and they just ignored me.
That's fair.
It worked out. So how'd you guys do? Did you have fun?
We had a ton of fun. I totally sacked out by the end of the stream, unfortunately, because that's when my cold really kicked in.
Yeah.
So I went from like, yeah, this is amazing, to my throat's kind of sore, to I'm dying by the end of the stream. But we had so much fun, and we raised so much money.
We raised $1,050.
That's great.
Yeah, it was amazing. We originally set out to raise, I think it was 500?
500, and then we hit that goal right as we started the stream because we'd been fundraising earlier.
Yeah.
And we said, all right, we're gonna stretch it. We're gonna go 750. And then we hit 750, and the person who pushed us over the top, he's like, now you have to raise it to 1,000. And we said, okay.
And we ended up making it.
We did. We made it.
So it was a lot of fun, though. I think that probably the best two parts of the day were Jackbox with the spouses.
Jackbox was hilarious.
It was extremely raunchy.
We had people in the audience. There were people we don't know, and
they were funny.
I still want to know who one of the people was.
Ballerina.
Yes.
She will live in our hearts for life.
Yep.
So that was really, really fun. And then the other part of it was Life is Strange too. It was a really meaningful time to connect with the community.
Yes.
And talk about things like diversity and racism and some pretty heavy topics.
But also like politics and games and how that game goes for it. Yeah. And a lot of other games just don't.
It's true.
Or say they will and don't.
Yes. You are correct.
Right,
yeah, that is a topic. Maybe not even for us, but we'll figure it out. So we also had an extra live stream. It was not 25 hours. We have decided that we're a 12-hour house.
That's good.
That's fair.
And so, but we're going to do one every 3 months. We'll do one for Extra Life, and then we're going to do rotating charities.
That's great.
So
I love that.
We haven't decided on our next one, but I think I might just be trying to raise money to buy Xbox accessibility controllers to give somewhere. I don't know where.
That's amazing.
But we'll figure it out. I don't know the logistics of how we would do that, but I know that there are things that can be bought, and someone has an address where I can ship some.
You know what? You know what? There are people who we can connect you with. You can probably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Steve Spohn.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure if I was like, hey, I want a game and raise money to buy some of these, where would you like them to go? I am sure he has a Dropbox with a file to send me where to go. So I think that's going to be the next one we do. But we raised about $200.
Cool.
Which is pretty good for our small community. We learned an awful lot about streaming because what was interesting about this is that it was our first stream with the new setup. So it actually served multiple purposes for us to learn what we had. You guys too.
We taped down, we bought cables, like we did a whole thing, and then the night before we gaff taped down all of our cables and did all of our testing
and it all kind of just still lives in that place because we're going to do more streaming.
Yep. That's
awesome.
We also, for Tabletop Week, Amanda will tell you all about what we're concocting.
Yes, I will.
Great. Well, when is Tabletop Week?
I don't know.
Next week?
You guys alternate,
for us.
Oh, for Tabletop Week. I thought you were talking about like Tabletop Day, but they changed it to a week. Yes, we'll talk about Tabletop
ever. Tabletop forever.
There's just so many days for everything. Yes, next week on Tabletop Week, maybe you can just come back for that, and we'll do that. And we'll talk about that too. So it was a great test.
Mm-hmm.
It gave all three of my children who were very, very interested in getting in front of a camera. The thing that I really noticed is, they were very hungry for it.
All of our kids were too.
Here's the thing that I think, and you guys experienced it too. Something that is worth exploring maybe later, but they were incredibly natural in front of a camera talking about the games they were playing. Mm-hmm. Specific, like my son Jake was just talking like a streamer, like he knows what to do and how to do it, and was surprisingly natural, which is because it is not something that comes automatically to me, right?
Everybody.
I mean, I have a face for radio, so the idea of streaming live is oh, that's right, you guys don't like self-deprecating humor.
No,
I do have a voice for radio.
We're here to build you up.
Yep.
So we
Thank
don't
you.
we don't take any of your nonsense.
That's fine. I do have a voice for radio.
You do.
At least I've
You
been
do.
told.
You have a lovely voice.
So it doesn't come naturally to me, right? But for them, they just settle down into the keys. My favorite part of the day was when my youngest was playing, and for at least a good portion of the stream, I didn't realize that we were only getting the very top of her head
Aw.
because she was playing Goose Game, and no one could see what was happening. But she was very excited to play Goose Game. That was her only request. We were like, all right, guys, we don't have an infinity dollars to buy games to play for this. What are we going to do? And she was like, Dad, your audience wants to see Goose Game. And I was like, all right,
Everybody
the
wants to see
7-year-old
Goose
is
Game.
telling me about that. Fun fact, though, nobody watched it. But whatever. We saw some people watch it on demand, I'm sure. But we raised $200. A lot of people wanted to watch us play really stupid things in Smash is really the lesson that we learned.
Right.
And at least we had several donations to choose my Final Fantasy 14 character's name and choose their hair. So I would like to say that my Final Fantasy 14 character, I will be playing on streams, has purple hair, which actually really was not as aggressive as I thought they were going to go. And his name is Mr. Sparkle Toes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which really is not that bad.
It's not bad at all.
It's not bad. Could be
I would
worse.
play Mr. Sparkle Toes.
Could be worse. Could
Mr.
be something
Sparkle
that would get moderated.
Yeah, nothing. Well, that was the number one rule. I was like, guys,
Don't get me moderated
like, you
after
can't-
this.
please don't make my name be like OK Boomer or something. Can we do something that's not going to get me reported?
That's not going to get you reported.
Oh, maybe reported
come on,
for being
somebody
awesome.
Somebody would report that.
Yeah, and you know what they would say to them? Okay, Boomer.
Okay, Boomer.
OK Boomer. So,
Okay,
anyway.
Boomer.
So that was the winning bid for a little while, but then somebody came in at the end and cleaned it up. So yeah, it was a great experience raising money. We raised money for Connecticut Children's Medical Center, which is a hospital that all three of my children have gone to for various things over the years. So it was a great opportunity to do that. Excuse me. So for those that are listening that don't know, Extra Life is a charity that works with the Children's Miracle Network, and Extra Life is the actual name of the charity. And once a year, they do a massive video game stream event. And it feels like the entire video game industry for one day kind of chills the hell out and just makes money for kids.
Except for the people who try to DDoS that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, except for like the Lizard Squad or whatever that decided to do it, but most,
fair.
It
Calling
feels
them
to
the Lizard
me.
Squad, that's fair.
No, that
Yeah.
was their actual name of a group. That,
Wait, what?
Oh yeah.
There's a group called the Lizard Squad that destroys Christmas.
It's a long story. That
Okay,
was
that's
that's
later.
a story. That's a story I reported on many moons ago.
I know. You were the one that taught me what they were called.
Oh.
Fun fact. Fun fact.
I know
So-
nothing apparently.
Oops.
I don't know, man. Whatever. It's not that you know nothing. You don't know that specific thing. You know a lot of stuff. I'm the one that knows nothing.
We're all
So
Jon Snow.
he's more ruggedly handsome than I am.
He's more ruggedly
so-
handsome than everyone is.
Yeah, it's true. And he's going to be an Avenger soon, so it's fine. So the it just, because it feels like if you're a content creator on the, like, you have to do it. It almost feels to me, it's like, that's what are they doing for Extra Life? And I thought I always love that. I didn't participate on the actual game day this year, and I kind of was okay with it. We were on vacation, so I was not going to miss that.
That's fair.
Because you saw the pictures of where we were. We were
I
on the
did.
beach in Connecticut.
I loved it.
Didn't want to miss that.
No.
But that's what's great about it. They do one big day, but the reality is, you can do it whenever. So both of our teams will be, I'm sure, recruiting for next year. So we will talk about it more as we get closer. So now that we've talked a little bit about Extra Life, why don't we go around the horn? Amanda,
Yes.
my understanding is that occasionally you play video games.
Yes.
And in this case, you have played several video games on your Nintendo Switch
I have.
that are family appropriate. So can you tell me a tale about a fox.
I will tell you a tale about a fox. In fact, I wrote a very in-depth interview. Actually, I did write an interview.
You did.
There was both an interview and a review about new Super Lucky's Tale. So, new Super Lucky's Tale, I've never played a Lucky game before. And these games have been around, I guess, on the Oculus Rift in VR originally, and then it was exclusively on Xbox and Windows, and now it's exclusively on Switch. So, it's essentially a remix and a remaster of Super Lucky's Tale, which came out on the Xbox One and on Windows. So, new Super Lucky's Tale is a bombastic Banjo-Kazooie type game. And, you know, despite some weird problems with, you know, I had some latency. I had some problems with some in-game frame rate issues. I had some stuttering. I had some loading issues. There were also some difficulty spikes that made my life very, very challenging.
Okay.
So, boss fights. 2 boss fights specifically that were extremely challenging. And it isn't because I'm a sucky gamer. It's because they are not well designed.
I watched her play that. And those boss fights were...
They were dumb. They're capital D dumb.
I think that happens... Doesn't that happen a lot with 3D platformers? I think all, like...
A lot of them have difficulty spikes, but I was hoping that it was more Ratchet and Clank than original Banjo-Kazooie, so it kind of wasn't. But it's extremely charming. It's a lot of, like, the vast majority of the game is really, really fun. It's bright, it's pretty, it's funny, and everybody should be friends with Greg the Male Golem, because he looks like Gurr from Invader Zim, and he just wants to be your best friend.
So at the top of this, I didn't want to interrupt you because you were, like, really in the spiel. So this is not the same game. It's not. It's like a
remaster and a remix of Super Lucky's Tale.
So it is a different game because I have it on Xbox. I thought
it's different.
The Switch port. So this is a different game. It's
not a Switch port. It's a different game.
That's actually very cool.
Remastered and remixed. Like I said, I've got a full review up on Super Parent, and I've got an interview with the game's director, Dan Hurd, over on Game Daily. So
from
if you
Playful,
want, from
right?
Playful, yeah. So if you want to know, like, what went into making the game and what made it special and how Nintendo helped make it special because they actually partnered with Playful on new Super Lucky's Tale for this exclusive deal, you know, I asked him a lot of those questions, so... New Super Lucky's Tale is extremely adorable, and it's not that much money. Digital only, but really cute and really fun. Until you get to the last 2 boss fights.
Is it digital only? I think so. Oh, okay. I believe you.
I'll double check.
I'll look. Because... Wow, you type fast.
Oh, yeah, she does.
I type 110, 115 words per minute.
I'm just a little bit
there is physical.
Yeah, I could have sworn I saw one.
I'm sorry.
So, is this the kind of game... So, here's my question. Is this the kind of game, as someone who is tardy and has not published my games list for my holiday gift guide, is this the kind of game that like I should be putting on there?
You know, it's... I don't know if it's necessary. Like, if you have other games that you're really excited about, that you're super duper psyched about, then great, follow your bliss. But this game is really fun, and it's extremely family friendly. And I haven't had a good animal platformer since, well, Adventure Pals. I was due.
I mean, also I think the kids would probably be better at those boss fights than adults because they have patience.
No, they don't. You couldn't even get through that. This is lies.
If I may, do you remember the stuff that we put ourselves through when we were children?
I played Mega Man.
Hashtag Nintendo hard. Yes.
So that's what I mean.
Like Aladdin amounts of hard.
Kids are like Aladdin. How many of us played through the Lion King?
The Lion King. Yeah.
SNES Lion King, baby.
So I think that when we say that kids would be better at those boss fights, number one, I think sometimes not trying is the answer. You know what I mean? Because like you were using the bulk of your experience, which was like coloring what you were trying to accomplish. Whereas sometimes just rolling your face on the controller is the answer.
All right, now, counterpoint. We used to buy games by going to Toys R Us, looking at the back of the box, picking a slip out of the thing, walking it up front, and praying to God that the game did not stink. And if it stunk, you know what happened? You played it anyway.
I don't know what kind of nonsense you guys were doing, but I rented all my games, so
yeah, the
renting entered the scene a little bit.
The difference is we're old. We rented a lot of games too. I mean, this is a whole, this is
going to be a whole other topic. We have to stay laser focused here. New Super Lucky's Tale is dope. You should play it.
In the world.
New Super Lucky Tale equals dope. All right. Speaking of dope things, I want to talk about a game that I played during the Extra Life stream. That is okay.
But it's not Goose Game.
It's not Goose Game. I'll talk about that next. I have 2 games coming.
Oh, dang.
Goose Game is one of them. Spoilers. All right. So I added this last minute to my Extra Life stream schedule because Polygon, it has it in the top 10 best games of the decade. And I happen to own it for free because the Epic Game Store gave it to me. And I want to talk about everything.
Okay, tell me about everything.
I have heard of this game.
I have also
I own this game on a couple platforms.
But I don't know anything about it.
I've never played this game.
Tell me some things about everything.
I can't tell you everything about everything because I played it for like 2 hours.
So some things.
Okay. So in everything, you play as everything. So you start as a cow. And you move around on a field, and eventually you gain the ability to descend, which means you can find objects that are smaller than you and then inhabit them to the point where you become a blade of, you turn from a cow to a rock to a blade of grass to a poppy seed to a down to like an oxygen down to like an oxygen atom, or molecule rather, and it was crazy. And crazy. And then you eventually learn when you get the smallest, you eventually can get bigger. So eventually you go back to a cow, and then you can become a tree, and then you can become a continent, and then you can become a planet, and then you can become a sun, and then you can become a galaxy. And then and the whole idea is you're just moving around. And so you move around until you see thought bubbles, and then the thought bubbles will say some interesting philosophical stuff. And occasionally you bring up audio files that are really deep meditations on life.
Dang.
And then I'm not going to talk about what happens kind of next because it's kind of interesting, but it has a really cool kind of loop where it has you kind of doing some stuff. It is weird. It was not the right game to play first during an extra live stream because it was more thought provoking than. Yeah, it was a lot. But it's cool. It is pretty. One thing that's really interesting is when you play as the one way because this game was definitely made by a relatively small team on a shoestring budget, rather than animate all these different animals walking, they just roll. So have you ever played Pass the Pig?
No, Mike has.
Okay.
Though.
So
Mike, you've played Pass the Pig, right?
Pass the Pigs?
Yeah. So you know how you roll the pigs and they're basically die. So they are just toy animals. And so if they're rolling forward, they roll forward onto their face and onto their back and then onto their butt and then onto their feet again. And so they just roll and all the animals move this way. So you don't have to, so that they didn't have to animate them walking.
Okay.
Which I think in the beginning, it really kind of disturbed me. But then I was like, you know what? This is an ingenious way of saving from having to animate like all these different animals.
I mean, that's
and
fair.
so they roll like dice. It's neat. I don't know that I would recommend it to everyone, but I think for people that like to play, I think this is a good gateway to experimental games.
Okay.
You know, like some of those games that you see on like itch.io where you're like, yo, this is some
Itch.io
weird stuff.
rules.
Yes. So this is a good way to be like, okay, if you want to play like an experimental game, you're trying to explain it to somebody, but don't want to like completely weird them out. Everything is the game that you would show them.
Okay.
Not Nobi Nobi Boy.
I mean,
Or Katamari.
I think that one's kind of extra weird.
Yes.
Katamari, all right, Katamari is probably another, but like that one, I don't even think. I think this is weirder than Katamari Damacy because Katamari Damacy, at the end of the day, is a puzzle game.
Yeah. I've never played Katamari Damacy before.
It's a puzzle game.
Katamari Damacy.
At the end of the day, it's a puzzle game. It really is very similar to Donut.
It's the opposite of Donut County.
It's the opposite. Okay, the core mechanic is different. However, at the end of the day, you are moving a thing around the environment, and as you collect stuff, you get bigger. It's just in Donut County, you're making everything go away. In Katamari Damacy, you're just piling it on top of yourself and turning it into a big rubber band ball.
Except that the physics around Katamari, because if a cow is sticking off to the side of your Katamari, and then you gotta like roll over the cow, so you have to like try to keep your ball kind of round, and then you get people, and then the people are like screaming as they're attached to your sticky ball, and then they get rocketed up into the sky to become a star. What's your problem with the Katamari?
I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying that they are. I believe that they are fundamentally similar.
You are
games.
correct. They are.
They just have different game mechanics. Thank you.
He just really wanted to troll you so bad.
Yeah, I bought it kind of. That was my begone troll face. Anyway, so that was everything. I think everything was fun. It was cool. It caught me a little bit off guard. I don't know why it's one of the 10 best games of the decade. But
I don't know.
Polygon be Polygon. They can do their thing.
Yep.
I'm not gonna.
I
ain't
trust
mad.
them. I trust them.
Yeah.
Somebody had a reason.
They sat in a boardroom, and someone had that.
I
debate.
never want to do that.
You know what? I was part of those conversations in a previous job, and I never, ever want to do that again.
No.
That's super nice. I mean, that's fine. I'll just do mine by myself. That's fine.
It's not fun.
It'll be fun if it's just me.
Well, yeah. I mean, if it's your own list, that's fine. But when you've got to like negotiate with people, no.
The hardest of passes.
Also, kudos to them for actually numbering them, not just the 100 best games, but a numbered list.
Yeah, that was. Well, I mean, they had to. I think, if for nothing else, just to unequivocally put Minecraft at number 1, which is where it should have been.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
You had to just to make a stand. Okay, so, Amanda.
Yes.
That was not the only Switch game you played. So my understanding is you also have been exploring a haunted mansion with a certain plumber.
I have, and his gooey doppelganger.
Jill Valentine.
Now that's a crossover.
Ew. Okay, so he's gonna go throw himself into the bin real quick. Luigi's Mansion 3. I've been playing that. I'm gonna have a review that's supposed to be going up in the next couple of days over on Super Parent. So I guess it'll be out by the time this is out. So yeah, I'll have a review up on Super Parent for Luigi's Mansion 3. I ended up playing it during my very, very long stream on Halloween. And this game is totes adorbs.
I do it.
Exactly.
Oh no!
So Luigi is so incredibly relatable because his anxiety around everything is just like, oh baby, I feel this. I feel this deep in my bones. Your anxieties, I feel them. But yeah, this game is there's so much to do. There's so much to collect. The story is really interesting and funny, and the puzzles are really interesting and engaging. It just made me want to keep going back and keep playing it. And if I didn't have to go and review New Super Lucky's Tale, I would have played it through to the end, probably over the weekend at some point. So, yeah. Luigi's Mansion 3 is phenomenal, and Luigi is rad, and being able to play the game co-op with Luigi is rad. So...
I do it.
Yeah, what
no!
What's funny about it is I actually have that game, and I have not been able to touch it.
I'm really sad for you, dude.
Partially because my children have been, but otherwise because I've been incredibly busy with other things.
I am not going to buy it yet. I'm going to wait until I finish Dark Moon finally, and then go back and play the 3DS version of Luigi's Mansion, which I've never played, but I purchased. So maybe I should get on that before I go and spend money on Luigi.
I do it.
Oh no. Ooh.
So yeah, I think that's a fair thing, although they're not they're standalone games.
They are.
Right, but I'm sitting on a game and a half I haven't played yet. I can probably, plus there's Ghostbusters Remastered, so I've got so much Ghostbusting action.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to eventually playing Luigi's Mansion 3 though.
All right, that's fair. I still can't believe
Ghostbusters
I still can't believe that Ghostbusters Remastered is like a thing.
And apparently it's good.
It is good. I've played it on Switch. It's real good.
I'm sure of that, but it's just so weird, right? Like there's just the confluence of events that happened that are like, you know what? Let's just take this game a while ago and just let's just remaster and put it out again. It's just kind of odd.
That game deserved better than it got the first time out anyway. That game's amazing.
Yeah, Saber Interactive actually knows what's up. They know what they're doing, man.
Oh no.
All right. Well, noted. I trust you guys.
We sometimes know things.
Boston makes me feel good.
I do say. So my wife did actually play a little Luigi's Mansion. Actually Luigi's Mansion is her. This is gonna sound. Luigi's Mansion is her favorite Nintendo game.
Really?
She is.
That's
Luigi's
really cool.
Mansion fangirl.
That's dope.
And so when they announced Luigi's Mansion 3, there was no one in this house. My kids barely. It didn't even register with them. They're like, all right, cool, Luigi's. Are we gonna get it? Right. That's basically their only question. We watch Nintendo Directs and they're like, are you getting this one? And usually the answer is but in this case, I didn't even say anything. I just looked at my wife, who was just shaking with hype, which is not usual for them because she doesn't usually get hype about. I usually do that. So it's exciting to see. It's finally out. It's here, and I'm glad that it's good because it could have been a dumpster fire. I mean, we know. Very excited. I can't wait to hear Mike's impressions in 4 or 5 years when he gets to it.
Oh no! Those impressions? Luigi impressions?
I'm hoping for a lot of time. Why is Luigi always so scared of him? He's bigger than his brother.
Yeah, but I think that he suffers from anxiety.
Well, we know that he was, kidnapped as a baby multiple times.
True.
I mean, that's fair.
Oh, man has not played the Mario and Luigi RPGs with the Mario.
I have not, but I'm familiar with the cultural zeitgeist around it.
You play at points in those games you play as the adult versions of Mario and Luigi and the baby versions of Mario and Luigi.
Yeah.
I feel like something went wrong somewhere.
I think, Amanda, that you would absolutely love the Mario and Luigi RPGs.
I believe this.
I've got 2 of them on 3. I bought them on 3DS. I hoarded all those great GBA games that they ported over to 3DS. because they're just that good. But yeah, I've got the Mario and Luigi. It was Superstar Saga was the first one they released, and then Bowser's Inside Story was the second one. But what was the name of the? So hold on.
Oh, you're sending him down a rabbit hole. We're
Woo!
never gonna get to our topics. You're gonna be here until 11.
Oh.
Michael.
What? Partners in Time, I think, was the one where with the babies.
Yep. Partners in Time. That was Game Boy Advance, right?
That was DS.
DS, yeah.
Superstar Saga was the first portable one, and it was Game Boy Advance. And then there was Partners in Time was the DS. Bowser's Inside Story was the DS. Dream Team was 3DS, and then Paper Jam was 3DS, which was a crossover between Mario and Luigi and Paper Mario.
Yeah. How sad is it that the developer's out of business?
Yeah, that is really
Wah,
sad.
wah. Yeah. Because these
Extremely
games are so absurd. And that's important. Because it's just, well, you know me and my love for the absurd. Speaking of absurd things, this is what we call a segue. Can we talk about Goose Game for?
Or
We
you
should
want to talk about
absolutely
Goose
talk
Game, or
about
you want to
Goose
talk about the discourse around Goose Game?
There's discourse around Goose Game.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about the discourse.
No, like the good stuff,
Is
where
it good?
where Goose Game has kind of permeated like popular culture, where people who don't play video games or don't ever talk about video games are like tweeting out stuff about Goose Game. I saw a Marvel one, like the Disney Plus, like the spoof Disney Plus account tweeted out one where it was Thanos and he had like the thought bubble and it was like the Infinity Gauntlet, and it was all done in the style of Untitled Goose Game.
All right, I get it. I mean, that is absolutely correct. How about, the only thing that was able to stop Untitled Goose Game from dominating gaming conversations was literally a AAA Kojima. Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
Nothing else could cut through that. Not even Fortnite.
And frankly, I'm going to be real with you. I think it was even money from me whether or not Death Stranding could have done that, because everybody was talking about Goose Game.
I hear that.
Maybe. And so it came out and we didn't play it right away. It was just not the right time, but we felt like Extra Life was the right time.
Yeah.
And also, my daughter was like, yo, we should play this because your audience needs to see it. And I was like, well, I can't argue with that. So we picked it up. It is serviceably entertaining.
Serviceably entertaining. What does that mean?
I mean, I don't want to say that it's not going to be on my game of list. Like, there are a lot of people who are like, yo, game of the year. And I'm going to be like, well, guys, maybe you need to slow your roll. Like, it's fun.
Dang.
I mean, it is fun, and it is better than it has any right to be, and it is the best it's probably one of the best finished pitched like game jam games I've ever played. And you and we've played a lot of games that are finished game jam games in our day, all three of us.
Yeah, all of us have, yeah.
And this is definitely one of the best ones.
Yeah.
It's polished, it's fun, I love the art style. It's just kind of, and it's absurd because you're a really like mean goose, and it makes sense because geese are mean, to my understanding. Are Canadian geese mean, or are they even?
They're the meanest.
That's where all the
Canadian
mean
geese
in
are the
Canada went.
meanest.
Well, yeah, the old wives' tale goes that the Canadian people drained the geese of all of their compassion so that they could be extra friendly. But the what? Oh, that's rude. She's making a rude gesture at me.
Not
she's
okay.
She's gonna say sorry next.
No.
So
No, she
Being an American,
didn't
you
get
will.
she didn't get her daily goose dose today.
So the whole thing. So we got about halfway through the game.
Okay.
And so I know that there's apparently like some stuff towards the end is like extra cool. And I'm sure, I mean, it's neat. I like honking at the guys and scaring kids away. I really think the way that it presents you your like quests, like as a to-do list, is just extra funny. it's like kind of on the nose because at the end of the day, that's all quest logs are. It's just to-do list.
Yep.
And it's even on like lined paper. But I think, this is one of those, it's a stealth action game.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's Metal Goose Solid.
It's not Metal Gear.
It's Metal Goose Solid.
It's probably, I would say it's probably better than Metal Gear. But I don't, but that's because I really.
Hitman Blood Honky?
To be fair, I don't. Blood Honky. Oh my god.
Oh no, I'm dead! I am deceased!
I specifically do not like Metal Gear. So for me, I started playing it and I was like, wow, finally a stealth action game that I actually want to play.
Kept you waiting.
Stop it!
Oh, man.
This is why we don't ask him to come on.
Errol, honk!
I don't ask him because I don't want to overuse
It's wrong.
and make him hate us. Yeah, so Untitled Goose Game, here's the thing, it's $20. So it's not very long from what I have read. This is, it's like under 6 hours, right? Like this is a relatively bite-sized experience. And it's fun. It's fun. I enjoyed myself. My daughter
I have it on
absolutely.
ETS. I need to actually play it. I haven't played it yet.
I played the whole first section. I got to get back to it.
Yeah, it is serviceably entertaining, but I that's meant as a compliment. Like I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's game of the year material.
It's a more sophisticated take on Goat Simulator.
On what?
On Goat Simulator.
Yeah, you know what? That was my wife hates that game, Goat Simulator, like vehemently. And so when we said that we were bring home and downloading Untitled Goose Game, she was like, "Is this going to be like that goat thing?" And I was like, "No, actually."
That's
she
probably
really
fair,
hates
though.
Goat Simulator.
No, it's more like Hitman, but you're goose.
Blood honk.
Blood
Yeah.
honky.
So I think this is one of those things I can recommend it. I highly recommend it to people who are good puzzle because they are neat environmental puzzles. It's just that instead of like moving blocks around or matching 3, you are stealthing your way through as a goose.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a British countryside, right? Is that like where you are? Like in Britain?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, those are some of the games that Amanda and I played. Mike, when we asked you, you said you played any games that you can't remember.
Man, that was like the morning. We were probably 12, 13 hours into Extra Life when I really wish I remember. Oh, Paul and he wanted to play Super Mario World. We played Super Mario World for our one-on-one time. But I also played all of Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Yeah,
by Samogo and published by Annapurna Interactive.
So when we last talked about Sayonara Wild Hearts, Amanda was very high on it.
Yep.
And I had played it and was the opposite. Now,
did you play all of it?
We had no, because I did not like it enough to continue. With that said, and Amanda, he just made a face. He just made a face at me. That was a judgy face.
I didn't make a face.
You didn't make a judgy face?
Me?
I'm always making judgy faces.
I didn't make a judgy face.
So
look, man, I'm a Jew from New Jersey. I can make judgy faces.
Oh wow! Yeah, found really interesting because I watched a bunch of your stream, and it intrigued me because you were like fighting somebody, and there was like real stuff. There was like more stuff going on, so I was inspired to try it again because it is on Apple Arcade, and Amanda and I did note that part of my problem was that I was probably using touch controls.
Oh,
it's
so
not meant for touch controls.
No,
I'm gonna report back when I have played it on I'm gonna report back when I have played it with a control.
Have you played Rez? How do you feel about Rez?
I have no rhythm, like none.
Well, Rez isn't so much a rhythm game.
I struggle. I also, I appreciate res and I can play it like mechanically. I'm just not very successful. I think that might be the other problem with Sayonara Wild Hearts, is that it might just be asking me to do stuff that I'm just terrible at. It's like there are some games.
Yeah, like if you have trouble with games like Crypt of the Necrodancer, then yeah, this is going to be a tough one because
rhythm games are not my jam.
Yeah, you really need to feel the rhythm in this game.
Yeah, I am. But it's beautiful, and I really dug the music from the later levels. So I'm gonna give it because it's on Apple Arcade, and I have a PlayStation controller, so I should give it a go.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting, kind of seeing more of the game that was completely inaccessible to me because I was terrible. Which is why I like a lot of streams, because I'm terrible at video games, so I get to watch people like accomplish things.
Well, I really like the game because there's no penalty for dying, right? Or like running into something. The goal of the game is to A, enjoy the story, but B, to just get as many hearts and stuff. There's things to collect, and that is all rhythm based. But I will say this: if you play it again and you love the music and you just can't like click with the gameplay, the entire soundtrack's on Spotify.
True.
So,
all right.
So that is a great way to enjoy the game without having to play the game.
All right. Well, that is a good point. Because the soundtrack is absolutely smashing.
It is. It's great.
So everybody should go add that to their Spotify playlist.
Yep.
So why don't we take our first break?
We've been at this for a little while.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back. That's all right. People missed us. And then we'll come back and we have 3 topics, 2 of them relatively short. And then we will continue. How about that?
Sounds perfect.
All right. So we'll be back in a minute, folks.
Hey everybody, this is Steve, I'm the host. If you like listening to this podcast, you probably like some of our other content too. You can find that all over social media, so make sure to head over to facebook.com/engagedfamilygaming. Perhaps you might like to see some stuff on Twitter by going to twitter.com/EFGAMING, or maybe you just want to head on over to Instagram and look for Engaged Family Gaming there. See you later, guys. Bye now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 201 of the Engaged Family Gaming Podcast. I'm still Steven. I'm still here with Amanda and Mike. We're still talking about video games. So we talked about Extra Life. We went around the horn. Now we have 3 juicy topics to talk about. The first one, this should be relatively quick, but I wanted to talk and just touch briefly on the Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
Sonic,
It's so much better.
Sonic,
Yeah.
he's got an attitude.
I want a chili dog right now.
Sonic, he's the fastest thing alive.
Okay, so
Mike has
Now
a
you're
beautiful voice.
he is wonderful.
I'll sing
and
your the theme song to Sonic every
and
time.
he's done.
And he's done.
So he is wonderful, he is talented, and he is finished.
I'm
So
Sonic.
So for some background, Sonic the Hedgehog is a movie that they've been trying to make forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
Right?
much.
They finally figured it out. They got Jim Carrey to do it. They got James Marsden, the real Cyclops, involved.
That's fair.
And
Also great
he
in,
will always-
in Westwood, if any kids watch that one.
Yeah, no, kids should not be watching
Westworld is perfect for kids.
So they finally got it. They got a star. They got Jim Carrey. And then they released a trailer.
Oh, wow. Hold on. Can we reflect on that shade for a second?
I mean, he's weird. So they, Evan, that's really distracting. He was flossing off camera. Because I have a 13-year-old. It won't be distracting because you're on camera. At least I know what you're doing. So finally started to get it going, and it was gonna be a dumpster fire because it's a video game movie, but like whatever, it's probably gonna be for kids and whatever. Alvin and the Chipmunk movies were kind of okay, right?
Mhm.
And then they showed the trailer. What was sometime? It was the middle of the year, right? Like April-ish.
I think so.
It was early in the year, yeah.
I think it was like March.
And it was a hot mess.
It was horrid.
And
The teeth, man. The teeth haunt my nightmares.
yeah, you know what it looked like? You know what he looked like? He looked like one of them Assassin's Creed glitches.
That's not
From
it.
Assassin's Creed Unity? My God.
Yeah, he looked like a Unity glitch.
Oh, the floating teeth.
The floating
Yeah,
teeth,
that's
yeah.
a good reference. That is a deep cut, but I like it.
It's a deep cut. Well, I mean, listen, I was in those trenches when Unity came out. So I think Unity came out. No, I was running EFG then, so part of my beat at that point. But
It was on my beat though.
Oh,
I'll
yes,
tell
it
you
was.
that.
I know it was. So it is. So they put out this awful character model, which I'm sure was like committed to death, and probably one person with way too much power made it happen.
Was
and
like,
it
yeah,
was
this
awful.
focus tests super well, guys.
We gotta make him.
And-
We gotta make him relatable and human-like. And everybody's like, "This. Throw it in the uncanny valley, and then just like shovel over it."
Yeah, I'm sure
it's
every
so bad.
animator working on it. And so they released the trailer, and there was a huge fan backlash, which generally here at EFG, we're not we are not pro fan backlash.
No.
We're pro fan criticism.
Yes.
And so there was a little bit of a backlash, so much so quickly that the director said, "Fine, we'll delay it 4 months."
Well,
And-
hold on. They first they said they were gonna fix it with no delay, and that was like, and then everybody was like, "Are you
Well,
nuts?"
how long was it gonna be fixed and without a delay? Because my remembrance is that it was pretty quick.
No, there was I think
Was it
a
a couple of
solid day, maybe two,
Yeah.
where they're
Okay.
like, "We hear you," and then they're like, "We're gonna take it back to the drawing board. No change in the release date."
Okay.
And then everybody's like, "That means you're gonna crunch your animators to death."
Please don't crunch your animators.
So they decided to delay it, and boy, the change, it was worth it.
It was worth it. It was a great... I don't know. I really liked it. I went and I watched it a couple times just to make sure I wasn't
Yep.
losing my mind. But...
And the side-by-sides just remind how bad the original version
Well, and
is.
I mean, the original trailer was just cut terribly. The music was terrible. Like, the tone sucked.
Yep.
It just was bad.
Now, most
new
of
one's
the original
great.
trailer is in the new trailer, though.
Yeah, but it's cut different.
It is cut very differently, and there's much less Robotnik.
Yeah, that's probably for the best.
Well, and the Robotnik stuff they used in the new trailer is much better.
It makes like Robotnik actually look like not terrible.
Yeah. So I actually just saw this tweet. The person who led the redesign on Sonic
Mm-hmm.
has been making Sonic comics, but originally started making Sonic fan comics.
Really?
Yes. Now I won't say this is a family-friendly podcast, so I will just say that there is a character who is a riff on Knuckles,
Oh.
whose name is a similar sounding body part, and it's something the enchilada. So it's really funny. But this is you want to talk about somebody who is like started from nothing and made fan comics and now is leading this massive effort, successful effort based on what we've seen today, to revamp a beloved character and make him look less like a horrific monster.
Living the dream.
And they released the trailer today, so this would be Wednesday,
Yep.
and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
He looks great.
Mm-hmm. Much better.
Today's Tuesday.
Today's Tuesday.
They released the trailer today.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, you said yes.
So today, Tuesday.
Yeah,
What did I say?
You
Did I
said
say
Wednesday. And
I can't get this week straight.
Neither can I.
Amanda saw it. I posted my daily picture with my daughter, and I said Happy Monday. I don't know what day it is. So
What year is it?
it was I don't know. So it worked. mean, that's the bottom line. He looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
He
the trailer
looks
looks
like
funny.
Sonic.
Yeah, he really does.
The funny thing was now the first Sonic trailer came out before Detective Pikachu came out.
Yes.
And I think that they were probably emboldened after Detective Pikachu did so well to be like, you know what? Let's just go for it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, and it worked. Also 100% less Gangsta's Paradise.
Oh, right. That's what they used.
Yeah.
That was such a mistake.
Oh, it was so bad.
Now, I love that song.
I mean, who doesn't?
I graduated in 1998, so like that song was my high school. Yeah, we've been over this before. I'm like a million.
No, he's a million.
Oh yeah, I'm like 500,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Quarter
of a million. Over here.
So it had 100% less Gangsta's Paradise.
Thank goodness.
As it should be.
It was a weird choice, right?
It really was.
So the only worse choice they could have had, tonally, would have been Kanye West's Pack, because Kanye's in a weird spot right now. And also that song is obviously over. But again, I like it in trailers. I also, tell me that it seemed funnier this time around, right?
It was.
It was 100% more charming.
Yes, that's the perfect word. Like before it was like, all right, fine, it's Sonic. But
like,
now it's like, okay, it's Sonic.
Yeah, they also give you a little hint. First of all, we didn't see any of Sonic's world before. Like, there was no idea. Like, how did he get here? This trailer opens up. Oh, he's in the Green Hill Zone, and then he throws a ring, and the rings are magic portals to other worlds.
Why not? Sounds great to me.
Yep.
And so, and Jim Carrey they showed a lot of Jim Carrey just being Jim Carrey. Is a very specific thing, and if he taps into what it's weird that this is going to be Sonic the Hedgehog that if they do it right could hit nostalgia in two different ways, because you hit people that are nostalgic for old school Jim Carrey, which I think is what we might be getting,
that
and
would be nice.
Nostalgic for and if they do either of those halfway, this is not going to be like a classic, but this is just going to be, an Alvin and the Chipmunks that's going to live on Netflix and get 1 million plays a month because it's, vanilla, right? This is not going to be the best movie of the year. Can I just say, well, I mean, it might be because we don't know what's coming out next year, really. Can I just say, so they delayed it from, what was it, the first week of December to February 14th? Happy
Valentine's Day.
So, so let's just say, how excited are they to not only have a better Sonic, but to get Sonic the Hedgehog the hell away from Frozen, which comes out November 22nd.
I'm so excited.
Who wants to put out an animated kids movie within 2 weeks of that powerhouse?
Nobody.
Silly. And then guess what happens a few weeks after the first week in December? Star Wars, which is going to be another family kind of thing. So let's just get out of there. This feels like...
Yeah, this was...
It's a lot.
I wouldn't want to put out anything in between Frozen and Star Wars. Just nothing should happen. Just let Star Wars and Frozen live, suck up all the oxygen in the room, and then we'll just reconvene movie and other entertainment properties in January. We'll just figure it out. We'll just punt. Just after the Super Bowl. We'll just go. I'm excited. I think it's going to be fine. My kids are pretty hyped. They were not hyped before. I don't think they were as scared of Sonic as we were. They didn't. We don't have any particular affinity for Sonic. I don't think any of those games are good. And I've been very vocal about that. He's still Sonic.
It's still culturally significant.
Well, yeah, and now that Sonic has kind of moved into other games, especially when you think about his appearances in Smash, and they've been doing the Olympic stuff for a while, and the new Olympics game is good.
It's really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's kind of working his way back in there. My kids I think you're right. The first time my kids saw him in a video game, well, we have Sonic Mania, which is probably the best Sonic game ever. But they play him in Smash every once in a while. So yeah, Sonic is coming back. It's gonna be crazy. We're gonna see it. I'm gonna see it. I will have I publish my movie reviews on the EFG Daily Commute, so you can look. My wife has no interest, but I'll be going with the boys. So we'll go. That'll be my Valentine's Day date. Taking the boys to go see Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic.
And so next topic, let's talk about some Pokemans.
All right, what are we talking about with Pokemans?
Pokemon Sword and Shield is coming out the day this podcast, Friday, November 15th. Amanda, you're going to be at the release event at the Nintendo store in New York.
I am.
Have you already figured out your giant parka, and because it's going to be cold? Are you ready?
Heckin' cold. Well, I'm going to be in the city going to see part 1 of 2 of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. So,
ooh.
Yeah. So that's going to be awesome. But so yeah, I got an invite last minute from my PR contact at Nintendo, and he's like, "Hey, I know this is really late and on a school night, but is there any chance you want to come in for this?" And I'm like, "I got news for you, bro. I'm actually in the city that day, and I'm staying over. So yes." So yeah, I'm gonna be bundling up like heck.
That's gonna be
cold.
It's gonna be so cool though. If they if you want to grab some swag from me, mad. It's a joke. Because I'm sure it's gonna be under lock and key.
Probably. Because
Nintendo be crazy. So but this is a big deal.
It is.
I mean, this is a new Pokemon game.
It is. A new mainline Pokemon game, not Pokemon Let's Go.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Pokemon.
No,
it is
you're
the
right.
First mainline Pokemon game that will be playable natively
on a TV.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so incredibly hyped. I mean, there's been some shenanigans online. I am electing to ignore in favor of super excitement.
Yep.
Because
all aboard the hype train. We don't need to deal with the haters.
Here's what I'm going to say about this, if I may. That the hate is coming from a very specific, very small, vocal group of people. Pokemon sells well every single time. I'm not worried about the game selling, and here's the thing that I'm going to point out, which often gets lost. I think I might have played some of every generation of Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
I have never finished a Pokemon game. But I played some of... The fact that there is a more condensed Pokedex in this game, given that it's the first outing on a new system, this whole thing that we just talked about it being natively playable on a television, having hundreds of Pokemon is off-putting.
It is.
And I understand that people are going to be upset that they're, some of their favorites, but... The number of people who carry their Pokemon from one game to the next, I don't think is a sales-wise, a commercially significant portion of the community in the way that people are responding to it online.
Well, I think that is a safe bet, if for nothing else, because we know Game Freak has if it was a significant portion, they would have delayed the game 6 months and figured it out.
Yeah.
Right? They know the numbers. With that said, the target audience for the three of us are grown adults that are super excited about Pocket Monsters because but the target audience for this game is
kiddos.
Our kids. And let me tell you, I come home, I'm looking at Twitter at the gas station or, while I'm at Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, and I see shenanigans, right? Or me and Amanda share we'll share a text message going back and forth, lamenting the negative universe. And then I'll come home and I'll be like, oh man, Pokemon's going to be so cool, but what's happening? And then my kids will come up and be like, so dad, this is our, and they have just shed all of that. They are shielded from it because of their hype.
Yeah.
They're wielding armor of excitement. And it's, this is, so my daughter is 6. She'll be 7 in December. This is her first, she's played, she messed around in Pokemon, but like this is her first. She messed around in Pokemon Let's Go, right? But this is her first one, and she is so excited. I mean, Galarian Ponyta, like,
Hello.
that's in Shield, right? Whichever, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Whichever one
she
starts
has
playing.
Yeah.
We're getting both.
That's her end
trade.
game.
That is, yes, I can see that for her.
So
that's her end game.
Here's the thing, and this is the analogy that I'll make. There were some people when Monster Hunter World came out that were so angry at a bunch of the quality of life things. Oh my gosh, scout flies! That makes it so easy. Oh, I have unlimited whetstones. That's too easy. And that game sold better than any game in the series because it was accessible.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like that some of the stuff that they're implementing here, it's like, no, experience share is not just a feature. It's not just a feature of the game. It's a core system of the game now. So no, you can't turn it off. Sorry, that's the decision that we've made for the way this game is best balanced. So things like that, I think what you're going to have is, you're probably going to have some people who feel alienated by it because it's not the Pokemon, the hardcore Pokemon that they remember, and they can't bring their Pokemon over, and the Pokedex is slimmer than it's been in forever. But I think it's going to welcome a lot more people into the fold, and this is the first Pokemon game that I can really see myself not feeling like, wait, how big is this Pokedex? This is,
I agree. I've been so super overwhelmed by some of the other stuff. Admittedly, I'm a casual just about everything, right? But like, this is going to be a lot of kids. This is going to be a lot of kids. Just like every Pokemon is a lot of kids' first Pokemon, right? I mean, Pokemon is one of those games that is just universally like, oh, this is for kids.
Yeah.
And no, that doesn't mean it's immune from criticism, of course. But as I said on my EFG Daily Commute, which you can listen to, just go to engagefamilygaming.com/commute. There's a difference between criticism and whining, and very few people know the difference. The three of us know the difference. And so for hype's sake, it's from my eye, this is absolutely gorgeous. Sure, there's some imperfections in the graphics, but The Witcher wasn't perfect either. Mm-hmm. And it was close, but it wasn't perfect. and like, the Pokemon are still awesome. I mean, there's a freaking wheezing with there's a coughing with a top hat. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's hopping with a top hat. Does he look a little bit like a bong? Yes. But he's got a top.
But are we going to hold that against him?
No.
Am I going to hold that against him?
No.
Okay.
No.
There's a unicorn. Ponyta looks like a freaking My Little Pony character.
And it's perfect.
And they have Surfetched.
Yes.
Surfetched is enough.
Surfetched is amazing.
So we're getting all three. We're getting both here as well. We're actually saved by the fact that we don't have to get a copy for everybody. We ended up with 6 copies of Sword of Sun and Moon between Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So we have 2 of each of the regular base model, and then Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon.
Yeah,
so
we've got 4.
6 copies.
We do.
Oh wait, no, we have 5. We have 2 copies of one of them because you had one before.
I had X.
So
no, you had Sun, didn't you?
And Sun.
Yeah, so we had Sun and Moon, you have Sun, and then you and I bought Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which I need to get back to. Which I'm not going to until I finish.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So we were so all in. And so we're saved a little bit here. We only have to... Actually, only 100 if you buy them at once. Because Switch games are only $50 there from now on. I don't know why. We're still figuring out like who's gonna play what, but it doesn't matter knowing that like whoever has Surf is gonna be just breeding Farfetch'd forever to feed everyone that we know. Like we have a plan to try and just get all this going, and I'm just so excited to get there. I mean, we only have 2 Switches. Right. And so the good news is this whole trading, they're working out sharing who's going to be using what Switch. And who's going to be playing which copy of the game and how long everybody gets a turn. It's kind of like training wheels for Animal Crossing.
Oh, and if you've got Let's Go, if you got either or both of those and you put them in the Switch and just start the save, you'll get a Gigamax Pikachu and a Gigamax Eevee.
And the Pikachu is Fat Pikachu.
Oh yeah, he's Chunkachu.
I'm so down with Fat Pikachu. So, I mean, this is going to be, we're so close. It's Tuesday, review embargo. So we'll find out tomorrow. God have mercy. But I am so hyped. I don't even really need to look at them outside of the fact that I'm curious what the videos look like. I almost want to watch a few reviews on mute just so I can see the video that they're allowed to capture. I like inside baseball crap. We've already bought them, and my wife is too. This is one of those, this is an event in our house, and not just because I run a family-friendly website, and this is probably the biggest family-friendly release of the year. Actually, I think it probably is the biggest release of the year.
It's gonna make Nintendo's holiday. That's for darn sure.
Oh man,
I would argue that the other big release is Neverwinter on Switch.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I'm goofing. It's not.
I think that's a bit of a. I'm not going to fight you, but I think it's a stretch.
I'm goofing with you.
So between the three of us here, we're good for 4 sold copies. Pokemon, and only because 2 of you live in the same house. Yeah. So that's Pokemon. Everybody, enjoy your Pokemon day if you are in. And welcome back to everyone who has been avoiding all video game media until Pokemon came out. Because I know several people who have been on blackout ever since the leaks happened. So welcome. You can finally listen to our podcast. Okay. Serious topic time, because I know it's sleepy time for you guys.
It's going to be soon.
Yes. So we'll do this relatively quickly. Folks, Disney Plus came out today, which we actually have a article about everything you need to know about Disney Plus up on Engagement. Also, Super Parent has another thing. Yep. They're fairly similar.
They are.
In fact, I would bet just about every entertainment site on the planet wrote everything you need to know about Disney Plus.
SEO.
Because hashtag SEO. And if you don't know what that is, good. Because it's the inside, it's about as inside baseball as you can get. But so it got me thinking. A few episodes ago, Amanda just about dove down the rabbit hole to talk about some subscription gaming, and then she stopped herself because she has self-control, whereas I don't. And she was like, you know what, we could talk about ever, but that should be a topic all unto itself. And I was like, you know what, you're right. And so we put a pin in it, and Disney Plus came out, and I was like, you know what, that's a subscription. Let's talk about subscription gaming services. So my thesis is they are parents can't avoid them, right?
You really can't.
So let's talk about that. Why?
Oh man. Mike, when was the last time that you remember living a life without like a Netflix subscription? Do you remember?
I think I upgraded my Netflix subscription pretty quickly when they moved over to streaming. At the time, I was working out fairly regularly, so I was burning through... I think we had a 3 DVD by mail subscription, so that I had my DVDs of TV shows coming in so I could watch an episode when I was working out. And then we had one for whatever movie we were watching. And then when they switched over to streaming, it did not take us long to cancel. So I would say probably, 2012, 2013, maybe?
So
I've had about the same here.
I've had mine longer.
Oh, fancy pants.
No, not because I'm fancy, but because there was no other service in Canada except for Netflix. It didn't exist. So in 2010, when it came to Canada, I immediately signed up, and until I moved to the United States, I've always had a Netflix subscription. So Netflix subscriptions aside, we're starting to see more of an emphasis on subscriptions in gaming. And I think that that's what we need to be talking about. We've talked a lot about Apple Arcade, which is where the original conversation came from, where I'm like, I shouldn't dig into this because that's a lot to take parents down the road. But now that there's Hulu that you can pay for, there's Spotify subscriptions, there's Disney Plus now, there is, Mike, help me out here, what other like kiddo friendly things are out there? There's Xbox Game Pass.
Yep. Do you want to? I mean, if you want to stick strictly to gaming, there's Xbox Game Pass. There's EA Access. There's PlayStation
and EA Access
Now.
Premier.
Yes, and Premier. Well, Origin Access Premier. There's only a
Premier
tier on PC.
Right.
Ubisoft has their Uplay Plus, I think it's called.
Yes, that is what it's called.
I'm trying to think. There's Nintendo Online, which gets you essentially your NES and your SNES games. That's kind of, I mean, it is a subscription.
And Tetris 99. Never forget about Tetris 99. I'm pretty sure that that's going to be like on my top games of the year.
Yep, those are the biggies.
Yeah, I think those are the biggies. And I mean, especially when we're talking about from a mobile perspective, you know, Google has their Google Pass as well as Apple Arcade. So I mean, free to play is one of these ubiquitous things that we see parents just kind of gravitating towards because it's easy. It's like, okay, I'm just going to toss this in front of the kid. The kid's going to play this for, 20, 25 minutes and then move on to the next game and move on to the next game and move on to the next game. But if you've got a bunch of, if you've got like 100 plus premium games hanging out in a subscription service, you no longer have to worry about advertisements. You no longer have to worry about microtransactions or about content gates. You can just put your kid in front of a game as long as you vet the age rating and you take a look at the game yourself. I mean, what's not to love?
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to avoid it. Even if it turns out that all your kid wants to play is Fortnite, that's a battle pass, fam. That is still a subscription.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the really interesting thing about subscription gaming, on the positive side, is it does tear the barriers down for experimenting with your gaming tastes.
Yes.
And
there's data to back that up, too.
There's
a lot of it.
Yeah, there's a ton of it, and we heard this from EA and we've heard this from Microsoft both.
And we'll likely be hearing it from Apple at some point.
Mm-hmm. People are playing. Well, Apple, the metrics are a little bit tougher, but you have more of an apples to apples comparison with EA and Microsoft, where it's like subscription holders are playing more games, they're playing games longer, they're playing more types of games.
Yeah,
and. It's really successful for them in terms of getting people out of their comfort zones. Now, the positive side of that is you've got games that people might not typically want to purchase for whatever reason. It's a short indie game. It's experimental. They might not know if they like it. Well, they can go ahead and try it on a service. That, in turn, according to some theories, will inspire more indie development because those games are good complements to other titles that are on a subscription service, right? Now, I have some thoughts about that. I need to wait to see. There's some things that are up in the air right now, so I'm not going to weigh in too much on that. But I need to see how that plays out in real life, because also launching this week is a major game that is single player only, has no multiplayer by definition. And I believe it is not going to have any DLC, and it has no microtransactions. And that is Jedi Fallen Order. Now, that is a AAA, $60 single-player game that...
Rated T for teen.
Rated T for teen. That we don't know how long it is yet. The embargo, I think, lifts on Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
So I believe the embargo is lifting, if not... soon than already. If not already, then soon. By the time this is out.
Well, this is going up the day the game comes out.
Okay, so the embargo's out.
I would hope that the embargo would have lifted before
Yes,
the game.
so the embargo's up, and we know how long the game is. Now, here's the thing. If EA turns around and markets Access Premier, which includes all of their first-party games, very similar to Uplay Plus, or Uplay Plus is similar to Access Premier, because Access Premier came first, then what they're doing is they're taking this huge AAA $60 single-player game that might not be terribly long. We're talking, a game, a traditional, 10 to 15-hour game, perhaps. Again, we don't know how long it is. That's a good reason to sell people on a subscription service. Oh, you don't want to spend $60 on Jedi Fallen Order? Well, how about you subscribe to Access Premier and you get Jedi Fallen Order, you get Battlefield 5, you get everything. Everything that you could think of, you get. So that's a good way to leverage a subscription service. Now, that requires the marketing to revolve around a title like that. And I haven't seen any. I hope that maybe this week will bring some more.
Some glad tidings.
Some glad tidings of smart marketing. The flip side of the subscription conversation is, what is it doing to the value perception of games? And we talked about this a bit with when PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live started giving away games. We've talked about this when there was that huge period of time where 2 weeks after a game came out, inevitably Amazon was knocking it down by $20. When Amazon was shipping pre-order games at 20% off for Prime members. By the way, I have slowed down on my pre-ordering. I used to pre-order games all the time that I wasn't sure if I actually wanted to play right now, because I wanted to get them at 20% off, knowing that by the time I got to them, it would probably be, by that point, it was 4 weeks, 6 weeks before they actually reached that price without the discount. So am I going to play this game in the first 4 to 6 weeks? Yeah, probably. All right, well then I'm gonna pre-order it.
Yeah, I did the same thing, and I've definitely stopped that. I almost don't buy any games from Amazon now, because between losing that discount, but also most of the games I buy are Nintendo games, and we all know Amazon delivered Nintendo products on time.
Yep. Well, that's where we're getting our Sword and Shield from, so we'll see what happens. Now, I am getting them with... we didn't buy the double pack, we bought the singles because the $10 discount. Anyway, so we're talking about subscription gaming, we're talking about the kind of the positives and the negatives. The potential negative is, what is this going to do to the value perception of games? And I think we're already starting to see it shift. I think that we're already starting to see, especially Microsoft, which has done a really great job of creating an ecosystem on the other side, who is going to run out and spend $60 on The Outer Worlds on Xbox One? You might buy it on PS4, you might buy it on PC, but if you have an Xbox One and that's where you do the majority of your gaming, are you going to run out and buy The Outer Worlds? Or are you just going to take that money and put it towards a Game Pass sub?
Well, and I mean, it really depends on what it is that you as a human being value. I know in our household, if we can, we buy everything physical, because that way we have it and there's going to be no chance of, it just randomly going away. So it's worth the $60 to us, and it is worth the $60 to a chunk of gamers that want to make sure that they have their, large physical collections of games, but it's becoming more and more of a relic. I mean, digital distribution's enormous, and it's going to continue to eclipse physical sales. Yep.
And physical will always be around, but let's say we cut out the part of the audience that's going out and wants to buy a copy of The Outer Worlds physical on Xbox One.
Okay.
If you are someone who only purchases games digitally,
there's no incentive.
There's no incentive to spend the $60 on the game, right? It's a beautiful value add. Now remember that Obsidian, this game is published by Private Division. It's developed by Obsidian. Microsoft now owns Obsidian, so you've got this weird triangle of relationships in getting that game out the door, right?
Yes.
So there's a reason why I'm sure that they struck a deal for Outer Worlds to be day one on Game Pass. But you look at how many games hit Game Pass on day one, and it's just impressive. And Microsoft is engaging in huge amounts of user acquisition efforts. And that's that's costs that are absorbed in giving people that huge deal during E3 this year, where it was like $1, or was it during Gamescom, where it's like $1 for?
I think it was both, actually.
Yeah.
I think it might even still be going on.
So I ended up converting. So I have like 3 years for $1 or something like that, because I had just like renewed, and there was a thing that happened. But it was wild, right? And then you got the user acquisition side of they have to build up the library, and there's money that they're spending there. So eventually they're not going to want to spend that much money on user acquisition, and we're going to see things start to level out.
Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, it's interesting to see how it's kind of all, it's interesting to see all these different companies kind of hop into the pool different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft's like diving in like super hardcore. Other people kind of putting their foot in the water. It is, but at this point, though, everybody's in there in some way.
Yes.
Everybody's at the party.
Mm-hmm.
And that not the case before E3 of this year, but as of E3 this year, everybody, Ubisoft pretty much was the last man standing. And they put out their Uplay. I get to go back just a little bit when you talk about people, playing games that they wouldn't normally play. When I played EA Access, or when I had EA Access, I don't have it all the time now. I never would have bought an NHL game ever.
That's fair.
Because I'm not a hockey guy, right? But you better believe I downloaded NHL every chance I had, when I was on EA Access. And man, I love those games. And so, but I never would have bought one brand new. I mean, that's $60 that I just wasn't going to be able to spend. But when I'm paying for EA Access, because it gives me early access to their sports games, and just eventually those games get, playing FIFA or playing,
Sure.
NHL, those are games I never would have played.
Absolutely. I think that what this might end up like, and this just hit me, what this might end up doing, these subscription services, is it, as long as it's not pay per play or whatever, the Spotify model, this has the real potential to change the way that we interact with games. It has the ability, potential to change how we consume interactive media, right? Much in the same way Spotify, Pandora, and a lot of these other streaming services and these subscription services change the way that we interact with music. I don't buy CDs anymore. Yeah. I don't even buy albums on iTunes. But I listen to Spotify literally every day. It's a terrible model for artists, and I really, really, really don't want that to be ported over to video games. But it completely changed the way I listen to music. I now ping pong around, and I'm able to listen to a ton of different kinds of artists and genres. And today I'm into listening to, indie rock, and yesterday I was into listening to Southern Gothic or whatever. And wouldn't it be great if that was just what we had with gaming, if that's what gaming became?
I think that there's a lot of hand-wringing and pearl-clutching right now that the advent of subscription gaming is going to lead to a market that exclusively focuses on service games, microtransactions, other forms of recurrent monetization, like battle passes, and kicks the experimental, short, indie, AAA, single player, all these games that are not as commercially beneficial as those service-based games, because it's not that AAA single-player games might not be successful. It's just they're not as successful as live service games, right? So
For now.
But so I think that there is a lot of concern in the community, in the development community especially, that subscription is going to push those games that don't fit that very narrow model of profitability at scale off the map. Now, I think that some of that fear is founded because we see how publishers have behaved, especially around loot boxes and recurrent monetization over the past few years. So there's risk here. Subscriptions put so much power in whomever is selling that subscription. You are centralizing power in a way that doesn't tend to work out for smaller people in the market, whether that's consumers or smaller developers. So right now we're kind of sitting here hoping, well, we've heard from executives that this is a vehicle to allow them to continue supporting those independent games, those experimental games, those shorter games, those games that don't have recurrent monetization. And right now we're kind of in wait and see mode. Are they being honest, or are they paying lip service? Is Apple going to be what everybody looks at as a metric of success because all of those games have no monetization, no recurrent monetizations, correct? Amanda, Apple Arcade?
There's no subscriptions within the subscription, no.
So
And there's no ads.
There's no
No,
MTX
there's no ads.
literally at all.
Okay. So Apple's success here is going to be the canary in the coal mine in some way. And I think, based on the positive things we heard about that service up front, it's strong, but I'm interested to see how they retain those subscribers and keep that buzz and keep that engine going.
And the writing will be on the wall for next quarter, because they just released their quarterly financials, and there wasn't really much for Apple Arcade because it's just been launched. So here's the deal. As a parent and as somebody who is actively interested in different kinds of ways to interact with video games and to interact with games with my kids, I think that there is a lot of potential for subscription services to be good for families. Mm-hmm. They're shared, which means that you're not having to pay the price more than once. It means that it is an economical way to create more opportunities to play different kinds of games with your kids. It allows families that don't have a ton of money to be sinking into video games every month. They don't have a ton of, income that's able to be put towards playing, buying games. They're still able to give their kids that experience, and they can, their kids aren't going to get culturally left behind at school or with their friends because they can't afford to play these games. If it's on Xbox Game Pass, amazing. If it's on PlayStation Now, awesome. If you can pick it up on Apple Arcade, great. But no longer do you have to just wait until it goes on sale. You can get in, you can get into the action, you can be a part of the conversation regardless of what your economic status is, as long as you are able to pay for that monthly price. And it is so phenomenal that it's actually affordable for families that might be rocking an OG Xbox One.
Now, I have one other concern. We talked about value perception, right? And we talked about what is the price of a game when everything you get is on one subscription? Do you understand? Like we think of things right now as a full price game is $60, right? Or a mid tier game is $30 or $40, or a smaller game could be $10-$20. But the question I have here, and this is where I start to get concerned, we don't have this problem with video because we tend to, as a society, binge on whatever thing we're hooked on, right? When we're watching video. Not always, but we want, we've to the point where Netflix and Disney have started to play around with trickling out. Great British Baking Show this season was weekly episodes. Mandalorian's weekly episodes. So they're not just dumping a whole season anymore. Now, my concern around subscription gaming isn't so much with adults who are experiencing subscription gaming for the first time, but for the generation that grows up with it. What are we communicating about the time value perception? And when, again, we go back to that conversation that we had earlier about when I wanted a new game as a kid, I had to ask my mom to take me to Toys R Us. I got to peruse the backs of the boxes, take the slip, go up, and pray to God that the game was actually good. And again, this is before Nintendo Power, which gave us a little bit of insight into whether or not what a game was going to be. Now it's like, all right, I'm gonna play this game for 5 minutes. That game, I didn't like that. So I'm gonna pick a different game. What happens there?
I think that, again, that's a generational thing because I grew up on game rentals. We didn't have the money to, to buy our games growing up. My brother and I rented all of our games. We blitzed through them. We're like, all right, we have 3 games for the weekend or for the next week. We gotta make it last. We gotta attack it, and we gotta tag team it because we gotta get through these games.
But that's the flip side, hon, isn't it? Like, you knew you had those games for a limited amount of time, and you played them to death for the period of time you had them.
Or we got 5 minutes into it, and we were stuck with it, and we couldn't flip it. And we weren't able to go back to the store and be like, okay, this game is trash, it doesn't even run. Or I didn't like the concept, or it's too hard for me. Versus going to my console now and being like, all right, well, you know what? I'm not really in the mood to be playing, I don't know, Battlefield today. I think that I'd love to go and play NHL, right? I want to go play a sports game of some kind. And I feel like that's kind of the positive piece of this, is that you're not stuck with the game. You don't have to go out and, go and head out to GameStop and be like, fork, I have to trade in this game that I just finished spending $60 on and I didn't end up liking it. Instead, you're able, like, one of the things that I talked to one of our friends about, Mike, is that, Apple Arcade has been kind of like this trial service of, okay, we don't have demos really anymore, right? Demos are hard to come by. So a subscription service can be like this high-tech demo of like, dang, I really, really like this game. I don't want it to disappear off the service. So why don't, like, for example, if I play NeoCab on my phone and then I'm like, man, well, I don't want to lose access to this because what if I don't want to subscribe to Apple Arcade forever? I'm going to go buy it. I'm going to go buy it on Steam. I'm going to go buy it on Switch. There are a number of different ways that we can look at this. And I think that in our household, because we are so regimented about gaming and because, the kids have to talk to us about what they're going to be playing and how they're going to be playing it. And like, look, you can't just go and flip between a billion different games at the same time. You got to pick one. They also have the access to our enormous treasure trove of games, but not every kid is going to have that. And so a subscription service is the equivalent of, I'm going to go and pick something off the shelf.
And I hope that's the way. Again, I see all these positives. I'm worried about the perception of the...
But that's up to us, right? It's up to us to help change the conversation and to talk about it and be like, all right, so look, if a game is just a series of minutes to you, then you're missing out on the greater bits and bobs. But isn't it up to journalists and pundits and experts to talk about things like, value and engagement and the different paradigms that we grew up with that we can help relate back to parents and we can help relate back to people our age that may not be immersed in this as much as we are.
Then let me reframe the question in a slightly different. Are we looking at a potential knock-on effect?
That's how I know you're writing this article, Michael.
To game development, if we're finding that bounce rate, for instance, on games gets shorter and shorter and shorter because people are giving games less time to click because they know there's a library of 100 other games out there waiting.
But you can say the same thing about Netflix. You can say the same thing about Spotify. You can say the same thing about anything that is a digital service and that gives you a wide array of content to pull from, right? It's the same kind of thing. If the only metric that is worth looking at is engagement, we're missing out on the bigger picture.
Right, and I'm only looking at it from that type of engagement because I can.
What does bounce rate matter? Truly, if we think about it, like I think we're getting into the weeds here, but so I'm sorry.
This is great.
Okay, I feel like we're getting kind of into the weeds here, but well, let's run for it.
Okay.
Because you and I always do this, right?
Mhm.
This is like Steve. You are seeing us like do our thing. Apparently, we're turning this into an episode of the BizCast. So let's talk about bounce rate. Like, why does bounce rate even matter? Do you think that when I look
hold
at
on, if I could pause you for just a minute.
Yes.
For those listening, bounce rate is the percentage of people who hit a product and then immediately stop and just leave.
And peace out.
Yep.
Rather than continue with the product or buy something else.
Yep.
So, for example, if you go to engagefamilygaming.com and you look at an article about Disney Plus, and rather than click to something else on the site, you would leave to go to, say, ESPN to check your fantasy scores. That would add to my bounce.
Right.
So by the way, please don't do that.
Yeah.
Lower bounce rates are always good.
And then there's
in theory.
The other part of that is session length per game.
The session length per game is a far more interesting thing because that's cumulative over time. So even if you're bouncing off a game, and that's why I think that bounce doesn't necessarily matter, because even if you're bouncing off of a game, and I'm bouncing off of a game like on my phone, you know, I'm not necessarily going to... I'm still going to go back to that game, in theory. Like, I have a bunch of games on here that I bounce between. So I bounce between, you know, Jenny LeClue and Card of Darkness and Dear Reader and a bunch of different Apple Arcade games. I'm bouncing between them at any given time. But the cumulative effect is I'm still playing those games pretty long.
But I guess what I'm saying is, and this is where I think we're disconnected right now, is the combination of session length and bounce rate per title. So, if I start a game, I play it for 5 minutes, I don't like it, I think for most games, 5 minutes is not enough time for it to click.
No, not necessarily, but if the hook isn't there, it's not there.
Okay, and you've just landed on the thing that I'm talking about. This is the knock-on effect that I think that we might start to see. This is the unintended consequence. That we are going to see higher bounce rates, shorter session length per game. That ultimately is going to be boiled down into telemetry and metrics, fed back to developers, and then all of a sudden you're going to say, well, people weren't sticking around your game for too long. Well, darn. Now I'm finding that my games are a little bit too slow to start.
It's not relevant. Because developers are not developing games for the services any more than musicians are building music for Spotify.
Okay.
Because they're not.
However, I've already started seeing this happen. And I've even fallen prey to this just a little bit this week. Am I going to play that now, or am I going to wait for it to hit Game Pass?
I haven't done that.
Okay. So, I'm sitting here going...
So I don't even know how to deal with that, because that's just not...
I'm sitting here going, well, alright, so PlayStation Now isn't quite where Game Pass is in terms of all first-party games, right? But imagine if it were. I would probably run out and subscribe to PlayStation Now right now just to play Death Stranding.
And I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. Like, it's not interesting to me. If there's, like, look, I have Game Pass. I don't use it very often. I'll use it if I'm on my Xbox. Mm-hmm. But even if I'm looking at my own subscription services, very few of them are game-based. It's only Apple Arcade.
All right. I've started using mine a little bit more, and I'm thinking, like...
So is it because you're worried that your thinking has changed, that is reflective of how other people's thinking has changed and evolved? Because I think that we're looking at this from two different perspectives, right? Like, I'm looking at this from a family perspective, and this is a great value for families, and this is a great value for kids. And,
I don't disagree with any of those points, to be very clear.
And you're looking at this from the developer perspective. Developers are not developing games for services.
Yet.
They're
Yet.
But again, if like Apple invested like $500 million into Arcade.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, you tell me.
Because I think
Well, I wrote that.
It's your area of expertise.
I wrote that story. So yes, it was $500 million into Apple Arcade initially.
Okay.
And that was to support not just the developers, but the studios and the ongoing development efforts to create new content around those games. Additionally, these developers were developing games for the service, but for the niche quality of it, not for engagement, because that's a very free-to-play way of looking at things. That's not what subscription services are. It's not free-to-play. You can't game it. You especially can't game it on Apple Arcade because they're not gonna BS you.
Right now, I'm very interested to see how first party evolves because we are in the user acquisition phase.
Sure.
When they move to user retention, I'm very interested to see what ends up floating to the top.
And this is where we're going to have to end this because we don't have enough data.
Yep, we don't have enough data.
Yeah.
So welcome to a very small episode of the BizCast.
Yeah. So I mean, to circle it back, to put a bow on things, because that was wonderfully interesting for me.
I'm very sorry. It got very in the weeds.
No,
there.
you guys. Yeah, I wasn't going to interrupt. I thought that was wonderful. So I think we got to see two business analysts talk and really get into the weeds. Well, and also to talk. I mean, what we really got to see is behind the curtain, right? Like you guys were kind of exposed some of the cogs that are making some of this work. I mean, the reality is these services are only really good if games keep coming out and games stay, right? If as a result of this, games get worse, quote unquote, then that sucks. So to put a bow on this, to give some actionable advice for parents, Mike talked about it, right? Like this is the user acquisition phase. Right. And this is the part where right now this is where we're going to see sweet deals. We're going to see big splashy moves and it's going to be exciting. And then they're going to have to retain that. And we don't really know what that landscape looks like. That's going to be next gen.
Yep.
So in the meantime, just to give folks some actionable advice, this is what I do. And you guys chime in on how you guys handle it. I think you guys kind of tipped your hands a little bit about how you use those subscription services individually.
Yes.
For a lot of the folks that I talked to a family just the other day that was that had heard about Game Pass and wanted to know specifically thinking about Game Pass and was it possible to buy an Xbox One, specifically like an Xbox One S, because those are going to be $1.50 this Christmas. And
my Black Friday guide goes up soon, so
maybe not $1.50, but go to Super Parent, you'll see, and they're going to be a great deal. And is it possible to just get an Xbox One S and subscribe to Game Pass and subscribe to EA Access and just kind of live off of that?
Absolutely.
And,
the answer is absolutely.
Absolutely.
Dude, yeah.
You will be very, very happy.
There are 100 games on Game Pass. Plus, if you do the Game Pass Ultimate,
I'm sorry, Mike, you broke up a little bit. How many games?
100. There are 100 plus games on Game Pass right now. And EA Access isn't just, they have their vault on console. So you don't get access to all of their first party games right away, but you're getting a bunch of relatively recent stuff.
Getting on there pretty quick.
Yeah.
I would bet. So Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
It'll be 6 months.
15th. I would bet E3 of next year.
Yeah.
They're going to come out to EA, EA Play or whatever.
Yep.
Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is in the vault starting today.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a safe bet. Mm-hmm. Amanda, if you want to claim that one, because I know you have to put out your predictions early. So that is the answer, is that and realistically, Xbox Game Pass is $10 a month. Even if you ignore weird deals, and Black Friday is going to have some neat stuff, and who knows what'll happen on Cyber Monday, right? You might get some neat deals, but even at its base price, $10 a month, that's $120 a year, which is, for many people who are able to afford, that's 2 games. That's 2 games.
That's nothing.
For many, it's not. I mean, for most people who can afford I try not to trivialize money, right?
Well,
but if you can afford an Xbox One, you can afford $120 a year.
The chances are you're likely to buy
1 or 2 games during a calendar year if you
Yep.
own one of these consoles.
And so for you folks, and this is, let's say, and realistically, if you have a 12-year-old that is, they want a console, maybe, you're listening to my podcast because you like board games and you're kind of popping over here for video game stuff, and they want a console and you just haven't been able to, you don't want to pop in and get that, get hit up for a $60 video game every month because that's what you're afraid of, because that's what it was when you were a kid. There was always new games coming out. It's only worse. These subscription models are a way to kind of hold back that tide. Because realistically, 12-year-old, you get them Game Pass. Game Pass includes Minecraft, and then Fortnite is free. Battle passes aren't free, but even they are really not super expensive.
They're reasonably priced.
And Epic is starting to sell Fortnite cards finally.
Yes,
the Fortnite gift cards are so mint.
They are.
They're
the
fantastic. Fact that, I mean, you were around doing Super Parent last year for Christmas. I mean, how many people were asking you for where can I get a Fortnite gift card? And you were like, bruh, sorry.
It's not something that was available. And then this year, I can definitely say, hey,
Which
no,
so
you guys
great.
can do
It's
it.
smart move, and the economics behind that, especially around this time of year,
It's going to be so great.
Well, the cost to Steam, because they talked about this at GDC, the cost to Steam for them to have game cards is they absorb 10 to 15% of the face value of the card in cost. So on a $50 card, there's $5 to $7.50. Steam is paying, Valve is paying for. So we can assume that it's somewhere around there, probably. For Fortnite, so if you buy a $25, Fortnite card, which will get you a battle pass, right?
Yep.
So that's $2.50 of that. Epic, or a little bit more. Epic is probably absorbing. They're paying the cost of. Just so you can put that in your stocking. But the number of people who are going to put those in stockings, way up. That's going to be a huge stocking stuffer.
I mean, because it's possible.
Because it's finally possible.
It is infinitely greater than who were trying. Parents were trying to figure it out. And I was like, well, I mean, you can get an eShop gift card. You can get a PlayStation card.
Yeah.
That's just, like people want to give kids like, what's their thing? Like, oh, well, here, get this thing so that you can, nobody wants to do that. They want to get them their thing. So for those parents out there that are like, man, consoles, listen, the subscription services are a value. But you got to know what your kids like, right? If your kids are all in on sports games, but maybe they only play Madden, EA Access still has value because you know what? They can play FIFA, they can play, they can play FIFA, they can play NHL. They'll just play them a year late, but they probably won't care. And not to mention the fact the Vault has a ton of other games in it. So, knowing what they like and knowing what systems they're on. And also, I mean, and you guys, I don't know if you've heard me give this spiel. If you're like the aunt or uncle that wants to give like you want to give a cool, but you don't really know, giving the gift of a premium game subscription service is like the practical gift that is so cool.
And it
I had an aunt that always got me a Nintendo subscription every year, right? That was like what they did. And it was like so like run of the mill. Like to some people, it's like, oh, they just get this subscription. But like that was such a big part of my childhood. And it was like they took care of it. And it was a great fun thing. It was simple for them. To be that person that's like, yo, I got you on Game Pass for 6 months. Like that's a big deal.
Yep.
It is.
So it's and that is
providing
okay.
you access to tons of games for quite a long time.
So if you're that aunt or uncle or grandma, and maybe you don't have consoles in your but you want to be that cool aunt, uncle, whatever, those are practical. They are. It's hard to say practical when we're talking about video games, but those are the kind of things that enable cool gaming experiences. So think about those, and those things are great. So I think we did it. We successfully made it through all of our topics today.
It took us a really long time, but we did it.
We did it. Well, it took a long time because I let the two of you guys just go. So
I would not be surprised if John edited that down.
Well, maybe not. Everybody, this has been episode 201 of the Engaged Family Gaming Podcast. I appreciate you being here and listening. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as the three of us enjoyed recording it. Obviously, we are way too comfortable with each other and our bad jokes. So next week, it will be me and some combination of Amanda and someone else. Maybe Mike, maybe Linda, who knows? It's like Wolfpack rules. We're going to freebird it as they do in the WWE. Until next time, I have one favor. You know a person who needs to listen to this podcast. You know somebody. So take the link, drop it in their Facebook private messages. I don't know. Just don't be weird about it. But just, spread the word. Because a bigger audience means that we get to do cool stuff and get bigger guests and more stuff. We get to party hard. Not to say that Mike's not a great guest.
I am not a great guest.
He's an amazing guest.
Right. He is an amazing guest. Listen, if I can't say I have a face for radio, you can't, which is the most cliche of bad jokes for podcast hosts. You can't say that you're a bad guest.
I have a face for a paper bag, so there.
Oh, man.
With
that said, folks, y'all have a wonderful night. We will be back next week. But until then, don't forget to get your family game on. We'll see you soon. Bye.
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 Music for the Engaged Family Gaming Podcast is Android Sock Hop by Kevin MacLeod and audio production by Six Pack Nerds Productions.
Sonic, he's really cool. He's got an attitude, Sonic. He's the fastest thing alive.
I'm so glad I'm recording this and I have video.